What is going on, everybody? This is Shield Football Talk, and today we'll be talking about my latest 2018 NFL mock draft. I created one last week and I put it on the channel, but I was looking over today. I wasn't a huge fan of what I had on there. As my final mock draft, which this will be. If I update it at all, I'll make sure I tweet it out. But I don't think I'll be making any more videos on it. I'll be doing more like, team needs type stuff for the next week and a half over. And my final big board for the week and a half leading up to the NFL draft. Now, I'll just jump right into it because I don't want this video to be too long, and I'll be going through all 32 picks, or you can just do what most people will do and just look at what their team has and move on with their day. But I'll just go through each one of the 32 picks. And number one, I've got the Browns taking Josh Allen. I think Dorsey likes his big-bodied big-bodied quarterbacks with really good arms. You saw him take Mahomes last year. They traded up to get him, and I really think, Josh Allen is a similar type player in arm strength. Got a really good arm. Physically, he's a huge guy. I have him compared to Cam Newton. A lot of people probably don't have that comparison, but I think physically wise, that is a very accurate comparison. Very athletic guy. I think this will be the wrong pick, but at the end of the day, I think he has got a really high ceiling, and if the Browns are confident they can develop a quarterback, then I think, who knows? Maybe it will be good. Maybe it will be the franchise guy. But, excuse me. Moving on to number two, the Giants saying Saquon Barkley, the running back out of Penn State now. Saquon Barkley, very high floor player. He's my favorite player in the draft. He seems to be the consensus number one player in the draft. He's right there with Quentin Nelson, I think, as the unanimous number one overall player in this draft. Now, Saquon Barkley, I think if you surround Eli Manning with the right amount of talent, I think the offense will be really productive, and I think we saw that a couple of years ago with Odell healthy, and a really solid offense. Overall, it was good enough to, kind of go along with the defense that was really good, and I think they're going to need their defense to step up more this year. But I think if all things go well with Saquon Barkley on their team, I think that they will be a playoff contender again. Plus, Saquon Barkley and Odell Beckham on the same field. I think everybody kind of wants to see that, right? That'll just be very exciting football to watch, a very explosive offense. But anyway, moving on to number three, the Jets taking Sam Darnold, the quarterback out of USC. Now, this is obviously a dream scenario for the Jets, ever since the days, months back with the whole Suck for Sam campaign. The Jets have turned out to be a lot better than people expect over the last season, but I think that's because of their great culture in their locker room. I think they've really helped since the days of Sheldon Richardson, just saying he doesn't care about the game, and all that, on Snapchat before the game and all that stuff. And, they're bringing a guy like Jamal Adams to really set a great culture there. He's probably my favorite player in the league, to be honest, Jamal Adams. I follow him on Twitter and all that. Just a great leader to have for the Jets. And I think they'll have that for years to come. And I think you get that offensive guy in Sam Darnold right here. Probably the best personality out of the quarterbacks in this draft class. You see Josh Allen throwing his teammates under the bus. You see Josh Rosen, have his character issues. Even if you don't really think they're character issues, there's still a little bit something there. Baker's getting arrested. All this stuff. So, Sam Darnold I think is the safe pick, and I think he's the consensus number one pick. Consensus number one quarterback in this draft among the draft community. Is my favorite quarterback. Really don't think they can go wrong here. But moving on to number four, I got the Browns taking Bradley Chubb, defensive end out of NC State. Now, I really think Bradley Chubb, Myles Garrett on the same pass rush will be too lethal for the Browns to pass up on. You see what the Eagles did last year with their great rotation of pass rushers. They won the Super Bowl. I think that's what the Browns might end up going with here. It's a copycat league. I think some teams will end up going with deeper defensive end rotations, and Myles Garrett, Bradley Chubb, Ryan Nassib, all these guys. I think that's what the Browns will roll with here. But obviously this is a candidate to trade back here. But moving on to number five, where the Broncos taking Tremaine Edmonds, the outside linebacker out of Virginia Tech. Now, he can also play inside. As a matter of fact, I would prefer him to play inside linebacker. But I think overall the Broncos really would like this, this linebacker influx of talent that I think they've been lacking for the last couple of seasons ever since our defense has declined a little bit. But moving on, I've got the Colts taking Quentin Nelson, the guard out of Notre Dame. Now, this will be a very popular pick. I can't imagine it won't be, because you get the Indiana guy and Quentin Nelson. Now, I think Quentin Nelson is the safest player in this draft. You'll hear that a lot. And I really think he is. I mean, just a huge kid. He moves really well. He's just, a menace on the offensive line. Great run blocker, great pass blocker, or pass protector. You really can't go wrong with this kid. Moving on, I've got the Bucs taking another offensive lineman out of Notre Dame, Mike McGlinchey, who played left tackle for them. I think this is the best left tackle in the class, and personally, I think the Bucs will trade back with the Bills and take this guy, but I don't have any trades in this mock draft, so I have them taking him at number 7, which would probably be a bit of a reach if you look at the offensive line class as a whole and where they're projected to go. But I think Mike McGlinchey is a guy that can step in, replace Donovan Smith, who I think has not really showed that he can be a great left tackle in this league to this point. And I think he's hindered, but one of the reasons the offensive line has been great as a whole, and I think they could take a guy like Quentin Nelson if he falls to them. But I think their offensive line needs an influx of talent, and has really been hindering Jameis Winston from developing a little bit. The run game is really bad, and I think that's a part of the offensive line is part of that problem. So that's the pick I have the Bucs going with. Moving on, I've got the Bears taking Calvin Ridley, the wide receiver out of Alabama. So I think Calvin Ridley is the best wide receiver in this draft class. Great route runner. He's a big part of that Alabama national championship run last year. Great hands, all that. I don't think they can go wrong with this guy. I think you pair him with Allen Robinson, who they got in free agency this year. They'll have their own Michael Crabtree and Mark Cooper combination that the Raiders have had over the last couple of seasons. And I think Mitchell Trubisky will really benefit from it. He's a guy that really is going to need better talent than what they gave him last year to progress in this league, and especially considering the Bears lost Cameron Meredith in free agency. So that's the player I have the Bears selecting. Moving on to number 9, I've got John Lynch and the Niners taking Denzel Ward. I think Lynch will fall in love with this guy. He's the best corner in this class, in my opinion, overall. And I think the Niners will really get a great secondary general in Denzel Ward. And speaking of secondary generals, Derwin, that's what I call him anyways, the Raiders, I believe, will take him out of Florida State. Now, I think this guy is a very, very safe option because of how athletic he is, and because of what he did at Florida State. I just think you really can't go wrong with this guy. Yeah, Khalil Mack up front, and you can bring this guy in behind and really, show out and be a big part of the Raiders rebuilding their defense. Moving on to the next pick, you got the Dolphins taking Minkah Fitzpatrick. Now, overall, I think Minkah Fitzpatrick is a really solid player in this class. I just think people think his upside is a little bit limited. He can play slot corner, can play free safety. Very good play overall. Number 12, we got the Bills saying Josh Rosen, the quarterback out of UCLA. Now, I think Josh Rosen is a very, very good quarterback mechanics-wise. I just think the off-field issues, the character issues are a bit concerning to me because other teams find them concerning. These guys do FBI investigations into these guys. I just think overall the Bills, Josh Rosen is a good matchup. Bills Mafia, I feel like Josh Rosen is the perfect guy for that organization. But moving on, I've got the Redskins taking Vita Vea, the defensive tackle out of Washington. Now, going from Washington to Washington here, I think Vita Vea is the most talented interior defensive lineman in this draft class. I think you really can't go wrong with him because of how great of a run blocker he is. I think he's going to step in day one and be a really solid run blocker for the Redskins. And I think, overall, I think he can get to the passer too from the inside, which is obviously an extremely valuable commodity to have. Moving on to the number 14 pick, I've got the Packers taking Josh Jackson, the cornerback out of Iowa. I think he's the best zone corner in this class. He had 8 interceptions last year, including some jaw-dropping picks and a couple of pick sixes to go along with it. So, this kid's so fun to watch. I think the Packers need a cornerback, and, ever since they got rid of Demarius Randall, their cornerback position wasn't good enough to begin with. Now they really need one. They're probably going to have to take multiple corners in this class. And I've said for years now the Packers need help at their cornerback position, ever since the Sam Shields days, pretty much. Moving on to number 15, I got the Cardinals taking Baker Mayfield, another team I think might trade up. But I think Baker and the Cardinals are a team that I think could easily be connected at the end of draft night, and I don't think enough people are mocking this. I think Baker might not go as high as some people expect him to. And I think the Cardinals, their new head coach, Steve Wilks, will really like this kid and what he can offer. You put him behind Sam Bradford for a year. He's a very football intelligent guy. He might even be able to come in if Bradford gets hurt during the year. So overall, I think this will be a really good pick for the Cardinals. And, especially if they don't have to trade up to get him, I think it'll be very special. But moving on to number 16 for the Ravens, taking Christian Kirk, the wide receiver out of Texas A&M. It's a guy that I think will go higher than expected, a guy I really like. Now, Christian Kirk is a very fast guy out of Texas A&M, very good hands. There's not a whole lot to dislike about this guy's game except for his height. I think his height holds him back in a lot of people's draft boards, but, overall, I think you're getting a guy that I think the Ravens will really like. They cannot swing and miss on another wide receiver in the first round, and I think this is a guy with a high floor in Christian Kirk, so that's the guy that I have them think for now, especially, losing Mike Wallace in free agency this year. That's the guy I have. But they can also take, Calvin Ridley if he falls as far, which I do not think he will. But moving on to number 17, I've got the Chargers with a dream scenario type pick, taking Roquan Smith, linebacker out of Georgia. Now, he's one of my favorite players in this draft class. He was medically red flagged at the combine, so I think he might fall, out of the top 10. Maybe even further, he could fall to the top 20 for all I know and fall into the 20s. But I think Roquan Smith to the Chargers, a position of need for them, will really solidify their defense as one of the best in the league next year as long as he can stay healthy. But moving on to the next pick, the Seahawks named Jair Alexander, the corner out of Louisville. Now, Jair Alexander is a guy that's been going up on draft boards rapidly lately. Just been great throughout the draft process. I think that the Seahawks obviously need the corner help. They lost Sherman in free agency this year. So I think overall that's the guy they're going to go with the corner. It's just a matter of who they go with. Mike Hughes, Josh Jackson if he's still there, Isaiah Oliver. You never really know. But moving on, like the Cowboys taking Courtland Sutton. Now obviously they need a wide receiver. They just lost Dez a few days ago. And Courtland Sutton's kind of a similar type player. Very big body wide receiver. SMU, he's a Texas guy. I think this just pick makes a lot of sense. He seems to be the consensus number 2 wide receiver in this class, and I think there's going to be a run on wide receivers sometime in the first round, and I think this is what you're seeing here, and the Cowboys taking him, even though I think they might take Christian Kirk, who might be on the board here, even though I don't have him in my mock draft, but Courtland Sutton, Christian Kirk, I think those are the 2 guys the Cowboys will be targeting on draft day. Moving on to number 20, I think the Lions are going to take Mike Hughes, the corner out of UCF. Now, the Lions are obviously, a team that could use an influx of talent. I don't think they have enough right now, and I think they need to be smart, as to who they need to draft here, and just kind of go best player available. I was looking over their roster, and I don't think they have a whole lot of holes as some people expect, but I think the Lions are only a couple players away from really contending again. So, I think Mike Hughes is a guy that can step in and be a very valuable player for the Lions to get. One of my favorite players in the draft, and he seems to be shooting up draft boards as well. So that's the guy I'm taking. Moving on to the next pick, I've got the Bengals taking Will Hernandez, the guard out of the University of Texas, El Paso. Now, Will Hernandez is a really solid pick. Can't go wrong, high floor type player. The Bengals, their offensive line is still reeling from losing their guys a couple of years ago. Andrew Whitworth, and I think they had a really good smart trade, trading back to this pick and getting Cordy Glenn. They solidified that left tackle position, but they still need to solidify that guard position. I think Will Hernandez is the guy to do it, and I think their offense will improve from years past. Next up, I got the Bills taking Colton Miller, Texas out of tackle, out of UCLA, pairing him with his former quarterback at UCLA, Josh Rosen. Now, it's kind of hard to even do this pick because at the end of the day, I think we all expect the Bills to trade up, which will probably mean them not having this pick. So it's kind of silly to even mock it, in my opinion. But I think they need help at the tackle position ever since they traded away Cordy Glenn to move up in this draft class, and I think Colton Miller is a guy that's been moving up draft boards significantly and could end up going in the first round, and I think that's where the Bills will end up going. Moving on, about the Patriots taking Leighton Vander Esch. I promise you guys this has nothing to do with the fact that he is white. That just happened to be how it went. I think Leighton Vander Esch, though, is a guy that will go in the first round and is a very talented linebacker. The Patriots desperately need linebacker help as well, so I think Leighton Vander Esch will step in, and maybe the Patriots will never have to envision Elandon Roberts at the linebacker position again. I think a lot of Patriots fans would be grateful for that. But moving on, I've got the Panthers taking Connor Williams, the guard out of Texas. Now, I think Connor Williams is a very talented offensive lineman. It's just a matter of where he's going to play. A lot of people have him listed as tackle. A lot of people have him listed as guard. I have him listed as a guard, and I think the Panthers just need offensive line help. I think their offensive line is one of the worst in the league right now. Believe me, I just think the offensive line needs some help. And, I know they took an offensive player last year. Their defense could use some help as well. But I think you really can't go wrong with a guy like Connor Williams. But moving on over the Titans taking Harold Landry, the outside linebacker out of BC. I'm personally not a very big fan of this guy. I don't think he checks out on tape, but he put up great numbers at the Combine. And Titans are a team that need help at the defensive line position, front seven position overall. And I think if Harold Landry can fall this far, which I'm kind of skeptical he will, it's just kind of the way the mock went. I think Harold Landry will be the pick for the Titans there, but I could see them going with a guy like Leighton Vander Esch if he's still on the board, or Rashaan Evans, another linebacker. I just think they need front seven help right now, and their offense is fine for now, in my opinion. Their secondary is getting better. I just think this is kind of the pick that they need to go with. They signed Malcolm Butler, and they drafted Adoree Jackson last year. So this is the pick for me for now. Excuse me. Moving on at the Falcons, taking to Ron Payne, defensive tackle at Alabama. Now, SEC guy for the Falcons here. I think you look at the Falcons roster; they don't have a ton of holes, but they did lose to Did they lose to Dontari Poe? I'm struggling to remember. There's just so many things that happen in the free agency period that kind of get tripped up sometimes. But regardless, Daron Payne, very talented defensive tackle out of Bama. He was a monster in the college football playoff last year. I think he's going to step in day one and be a very good pass rusher from the interior, which is something the Falcons can need. Moving on, I've got the Saints taking Isaiah Wynn, the guard out of Georgia. This guy, I see him listed as a tackle. I see him listed as a guard. I see him listed as a center. I think the Saints could just use another extra offensive lineman, another team with not a whole lot of holes, but I think their offensive line is getting up there in age. Max Unger is starting to get up there and seems to be regressing a little bit. And Andres Pete, a guy that I think we can all admit is a bust at this point. I think Isaiah Wynn can fill in for either of those guys, especially if the Saints there are any injuries on the offensive line. It's valuable to have a guy that can step in at virtually any offensive line position and play good snaps for them. But moving on to the Steelers, taking Rashaan Evans, linebacker to Bama, another guy I really like. I think they really need to find Shazier's replacement, and their defense obviously needs more talent ever since Blake Bortles lit them up last year. So Rashaan Evans, a guy you really can't go wrong with, and that's my pick for them. Moving on, I got the Jaguars taking Dallas Goedert, the tight end of North Dakota State, my favorite tight end in this class. It's anybody's guess as to who the first tight end will be off the board, but overall, I think the Jaguars' defense is good enough. Now it's just surrounding Blake Bortles with a proper amount of talent. I could see them going with a wide receiver here if one slips, like Sutton or Ridley, but I think Goedert is a tight end that can be really valuable, and we see more 2 tight end sets and 3 tight end sets in today's NFL, and I think that will be the pick for them. Moving on, I've got the Vikings taking Billy Price, the guard / center out of Ohio State. Now, he played center in college, but he can move out and play guard. He can play center. It doesn't really matter, to be honest. I think this guy was a very high floor player, and that's what he was in college. He never took snaps off. I don't think you can go wrong with this guy, and I think the Vikings need offensive line help desperately right now. Moving on, I've got the Patriots taking Lamar Jackson. Now, this is the one pick in my mock draft where I was kind of like, what am I doing here? I really do not know if the Patriots are going to end up taking this guy or not, but it's kind of fun to think about. And, you saw Brady's approval for him the other day. Bill Belichick is a guy who you never really know what to expect. This pick might be because he really likes him. This pick might be so he can screw the Patriots over, like a lot of people seem to think he's been doing lately, and then retire next year and leave him with this guy who he thinks is going to be a bust. But, overall, the Patriots need a quarterback to succeed Tom Brady. And, whether it be Mason Rudolph or whomever, if they trade up and get, Baker or somebody like that, I think Lamar is a possible candidate here for sure, though. But they could also use a tackle if a tackle falls here, like Colton Miller or, maybe they surprise people and go with Orlando Brown despite his poor combine. But moving on with the Eagles taking Isaiah Oliver, the corner out of Colorado. Now, this is a really solid player. I loved watching this kid on tape. He, physically speaking, he's not the best corner you'll ever see, but I think he's a little bit slower than some people hope. But I think the Eagles, a team that really has no holes. I mean, it's really unbelievable. You look at this team. They got some unrestricted free agents next year like Brandon Graham, Jordan Hicks. I could see them taking a player here and really preparing for the next season. That's what Howard Roseman likes to do. But I think you look at what happened in the Eagles-Patriots game last year in the Super Bowl, you really cannot stress enough how important the secondary is and make sure they never get ripped apart like that again, because if they play the Patriots in the Super Bowl again this year, for example, that might not end up going over so well. You really can't expect your offense to put up 40 on the Patriots again. So, that wraps up my mock draft, guys. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below, because I'm sure I screwed up somewhere. A lot of people take issue with my picks. But, that's my mock draft. Follow me on Twitter at ShieldFB Talk. It's right there on the screen. And make sure you subscribe for my draft videos over the next week or so. And then I'll be making more videos going into off-season and into the regular season, But, thank you all for watching. I really appreciate it. And until next time.